Hello, welcome back. My name is Josie, and this is True Identity in Him. Thank you for joining me again. For those of us who want to stay connected to God's Word but have little time to sit long enough to read the Bible, stay tuned as we follow a weekly rhythm of diving into Scripture with the Parashah calendar. Weekly, I share readings from the Torah, the Haftarah, and the Parashah, also known as the Holy Bible. So whether you're a lifelong student of His Word or just beginning to explore Scripture, this is a great way to listen, learn, and reflect and discover who you are in Him. For it is He who gives us our true identity. Staying close to the one who provides the words of life is essential, and knowing what His Word actually says is the only way to know Him, the Father God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Today's Bible reading will be from the Complete Jewish Bible version. We will be reading Parashah 18, which means Mishpatim, which means rulings. This Torah portion is from the book of Exodus, chapter 21, verse 1 through chapter 24, verse 18. We will then read the corresponding Haftarah portion from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 12, verse 1 through 17. We'll conclude our reading in the Gospels from the book of Matthew, chapter 17, verse 22 through 27. Okay, let's get started. These are the rulings you are to present to them. If you purchase a Hebrew slave, he is to work 6 years, but in the 7th he is to be given his freedom without having to pay anything. If he came single, he is to leave single. If he was married when he came, his wife is to go with him when he leaves. But if his master gave him a wife, and she bore him sons or daughters, then the wife and her children will belong to her master, and he will leave by himself. Nevertheless, if the slave declares, "I love my master, my wife, and my children, so I don't want to go free," then his master is to bring him before God, and there at the door or the doorpost, his master is to pierce his ear with an awl, and the man will be his slave for life. If a man sells his daughter as a slave, she is not to go free like the men's slaves. If her master married her, but decides she no longer pleases him, then he is to allow her to be redeemed. He is not allowed to sell her to a foreign people because he has treated her unfairly. If he has her marry his son, then he is to treat her like a daughter. If he marries another wife, he is not to reduce her food, clothing, or marital rights. If he fails to provide her with these 3 things, she is to be given her freedom without having to pay anything. Whoever attacks a person and causes his death must be put to death. If it was not premeditated, but an act of God, then I will designate for you a place to which he can flee. But if someone willfully kills another after deliberate planning, you are to take him even from my altar and put him to death. Whoever attacks his father or mother must be put to death. Whoever kidnaps someone must be put to death, regardless of whether he has already sold him or the person is found still in his possession. Whoever curses his father or mother must be put to death. If 2 people fight and one hits the other with a stone or with his fist, and the injured party doesn't die but is confined to his bed, then if he recovers enough to be able to walk around outside, even with a cane, the attacker will be free of liability, except to compensate him for his loss of time and take responsibility for his care until his recovery is complete. If a person beats his male or female slave with a stick so severely that he dies, he is to be punished, except that if the slave lives for a day or two, he is not to be punished, since the slave is his property. If people are fighting with each other and happen to hurt a pregnant woman so badly that her unborn child dies, then even if no other harm follows, he must be fined. He must pay the amount set by the woman's husband and confirmed by judges. But if any harm follows, then you are to give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise. If a person hits his male or female slave's eye and destroys it, he must let him go free in compensation for his eye. If he knocks out his male or female slave's tooth, he must let him go free in compensation for his tooth. If an ox gores a man or a woman to death, the ox is to be stoned and its flesh not eaten, but the owner of the ox will have no further liability. However, if the ox was in the habit of goring in the past, and the owner was warned but did not confine it, so that it ended up killing a man or a woman, then the ox is to be stoned, and its owner too is to be put to death. However, a ransom may be imposed on him, and the death penalty will be commuted if he pays the amount imposed. If the ox gores a son or a daughter, the same rule applies. If the ox gores a male or a female slave, its owner must give their master 12 ounces of silver, and the ox is to be stoned to death. If someone removes the cover from a cistern or digs one and fails to cover it, and an ox or donkey falls in, the owner of the cistern must make good the loss by compensating the animal's owner, but the dead animal will be his. If one person's ox hurts another's so that it dies, they are to sell the live ox and divide the revenue from the sale, and they are also to divide the dead animal. But if it is known that the ox was in the habit of goring in the past and the owner did not confine it, he must pay ox for ox, but the dead animal will be his. If someone steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters or sells it, he is to pay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief caught in the act of breaking in is beaten to death, it is not murder, unless it happens after sunrise, in which case it is murder. A thief must make restitution, so if he has nothing, he himself is to be sold and make good the loss from the theft. If what he stole is found alive in his possession, he is to pay double, no matter whether it is an ox, a donkey, or a sheep. If a person causes a field or a vineyard to be grazed over, or lets his animals loose to graze in someone else's field, he is to make restitution from the best produce of his own field and vineyard. If a fire is started and spreads to thorns, so that stacked grain, standing grain, or a field is destroyed, that person who lit it must make restitution. If a person entrusts a neighbor with money or goods, and they are stolen from the trustee's house, then if the thief is found, he must pay double. But if the thief is not found, then the trustee must state before God that he did not take the person's goods himself. In every case of dispute over ownership, whether of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, clothing, or any missing property where one person says, "This is mine," both parties are to come before God, and the one whom God condemns must pay the other one double. If a person trusts a neighbor to look after a donkey, ox, sheep, or any animal, and it dies, is injured, or is driven away unseen, then the neighbor's oath before Adonai that he has not taken the goods will settle the matter between them. The owner is to accept it without the neighbor's making restitution. But if it was stolen from the neighbor, he must make restitution to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by an animal, the neighbor must bring it as evidence, and then he doesn't need to make good the loss. If someone borrows something from his neighbor and it gets injured or dies with the owner not present, he must make restitution. If the owner was present, he need not make good the loss. If the owner hired it out, the loss is covered by the hiring fee. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price for her to be his wife. But if her father refuses to give her to him, he must pay a sum equivalent to the bride price for virgins. You are not to permit a sorceress to live. Whoever has sexual relations with an animal must be put to death. Anyone who sacrifices to any god other than Adonai alone is to be completely destroyed. You must neither wrong nor oppress a foreigner living among you, for you yourselves were foreigners in the land of Egypt. You are not to abuse any widow or orphan. If you do abuse them in any way, and they cry to me, I will certainly heed their cry. My anger will burn, and I will kill you with a sword. Your own wives will be widows, and your own children fatherless. If you loan money to one of my people who is poor, you are not to deal with him as would a creditor, and you are not to charge him interest. If you take your neighbor's coat as collateral, you are to restore it to him by sundown, because it is his only garment. He needs it to wrap his body. What else does he have in which to sleep? Moreover, if he cries out to me, I will listen, because I am compassionate. You are not to curse God, and you are not to curse a leader of your people. You are not to delay offering from your harvest or grain, olive oil, or wine. The firstborn of your sons you are to give to me. You are to do the same with your oxen and your sheep. It is to stay with its mother 7 days, and on the 8th day you are to give it to me. You are to be my specially separated people. Therefore, you are not to eat any flesh torn by wild animals in the countryside. Rather, throw it out for the dogs. You are not to repeat false rumors. Do not join hands with the wicked by offering perjured testimony. Do not follow the crowd when it does what is wrong. And don't allow the popular view to sway you into offering testimony for any cause if the effect will be to pervert justice. On the other hand, don't favor a person's lawsuit simply because he is poor. If you come upon your enemy's ox or donkey straying, you must return it to him. If you see the donkey which belongs to someone who hates you lying down helpless under its load, you are not to pass him by, but to go and help him free it. Do not deny anyone justice in his lawsuit simply because he is poor. Keep away from fraud, and do not cause the death of the innocent and righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. You are not to receive a bribe, for a bribe blinds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of the righteous. You are not to oppress a foreigner, for you know how a foreigner feels, since you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. For 6 years you are to sow your land with seed and gather in its harvest, but the 7th year you are to let it rest and lie fallow, so that the poor among your people can eat, and what they leave, the wild animals in the countryside can eat. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. For 6 days you are to work, but on the 7th day you are to rest, so that your ox and donkey can rest, and your slave girl's son and the foreigner be renewed. Pay attention to everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods, or even let them be heard crossing your lips. 3 times a year you are to observe a festival for me. Keep the festival of matzah for 7 days, as I ordered you. You are to eat matzah at that time determined in the month of Aviv, for it was in that month that you left Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Next, the festival of harvest, the first fruits of your efforts sowing in the field. And last, the festival of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in from the fields the results of your efforts. 3 times a year, all your men are to appear before the Lord Adonai. You are not to offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, nor is the fat of my festival to remain all night until morning. You are to bring the best first fruits of your land into the house of Adonai your God. You are not to boil a young animal in its mother's milk. I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you on the way and bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him. Listen to what he says, and do not rebel against him, because he will not forgive any wrongdoing of yours, since my name resides in him. But if you listen to what he says and do everything I tell you, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and a foe to your foes. And when my angel goes ahead of you and brings you to the Amori, Hitti, Perizi, Kenaani, the Hivi, and Yevusi, I will make an end of them. You are not to worship their gods, serve them, or follow their practices. Rather, you are to demolish them completely and smash their standing stones to pieces. You are to serve Adonai your God, and he will bless your food and water. I will take sickness away from among you. In your land, your women will not miscarry or be barren, and you will live out the full span of your lives. I will send terror of me ahead of you, throwing into confusion all the people to whom you come. And I will make all your enemies turn their backs on you. I will send hornets ahead of you to drive out the Hivi, the Kenaani, and the Hitti from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, which would cause the land to become desolate and the wild animals too many for you. I will drive them out from before you gradually, until you have grown in number and can take possession of the land. I will set your boundaries from the Sea of Suf to the Sea of the Pelishtim, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. For I will hand the inhabitants of the land over to you, and you will drive them out from before you. You are not to make a covenant with them or with their gods. They are not to live in your land. Otherwise, they will make you sin against me by ensnaring you to serve their gods. To Moshe, Adonai said, "Come up to Adonai, you, Aharon, Nadav, Avihu, and 70 of the leaders of Israel. Prostrate yourselves at a distance, while Moshe alone approaches Adonai. The others are not to approach, and the people are not to go up with him." Moshe came and told the people everything Adonai had said, including all the rulings. The people answered with one voice, "We will obey every word Adonai has spoken." Moshe wrote down all the words of Adonai. He rose early in the morning. He built an altar at the base of the mountain and set upright 12 large stones to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent the young men of the people of Israel to offer burnt offerings and sacrifice peace offerings of oxen to Adonai. Moshe took half of the blood and put it in basins. The other half of the blood he splashed against the altar. And then he took the book of the covenant and read it aloud so that the people could hear, and they responded, "Everything that Adonai has spoken, we will do and obey." Moshe took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant which Adonai has made with you in accordance with all these words." Moshe, Aharon, Nadav, Avihu, and 70 of the leaders went up, and they saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a sapphire stone pavement, as clear as the sky itself. He did not reach out his hand against these notables of Israel. On the contrary, they saw God, even as they were eating and drinking. Adonai said to Moshe, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay there. I will give you the stone tablets with the Torah and the mitzvot I have written on them, so that you can teach them." Moshe got up, also Yehoshua his assistant, and Moshe went up onto the mountain of God. To the leaders he said, "Stay here for us until we come back to you. See, Aharon and Hur are with you. Whoever has a problem should turn to them." Moshe went up onto the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of Adonai stayed on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And on the 7th day, he called to Moshe out of the cloud. To the people of Israel, the glory of Adonai looked like a raging fire on the top of the mountain. Moshe entered the cloud and went up on the mountain. He was on the mountain 40 days and nights. And now we'll go to 2 Kings. Jehoash was 7 years old when he began his reign. It was in the 7th year of Jehu that Jehoash began to rule, and he ruled 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Ziviah from Beersheba. Jehoash did what was right from Adonai's perspective throughout the lifetime of Jehoiada the Kohen, who instructed him. Nevertheless, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and presented offerings on the high places. Jehoash said to the Kohanim, "All the funds for sacred purposes which are brought to the house of Adonai, the half-shekel tax, the taxes on persons in a man's household, and all the offerings anyone voluntarily brings to the house of Adonai, the Kohanim are to receive from whoever personally makes contributions to them. and they are to use these funds to repair the damaged parts of the house, wherever damage is found. But 23 years into the reign of King Jehoash, the Kohanim had still not repaired the damaged places in the house. So King Jehoash summoned Jehoiada the Kohen and the other Kohanim and said to them, "Why aren't you repairing the damaged places in the house? Therefore you are no longer to take money from those who contributed personally to you. You must hand it over to be used for repairing the damage in the house." The Kohanim agreed not to receive money from the people, and they would no longer be responsible for repairing the damage to the house. Then Jehoiada the Kohen took a chest, drilled a hole in its lid, and set it by the altar on the right as one enters the house of Adonai. And the Kohanim in charge of the entry put in it all the money brought into the house of Adonai. When they saw that there was a large amount of money in the chest, the king's secretary and the Kohen Hagadol would come up, count the money found in the house of Adonai, and put it in bags. Then they would give the weighed out money to those supervising the work in the house of Adonai, who would use it to pay the carpenters and construction workers doing the work in the house of Adonai, on masons, stone workers, timber, worked stone, and everything else needed for repairing the damaged places in the house of Adonai. But none of the money brought into the house of Adonai was used to make silver cups, snuffers, bowls, trumpets, or other articles of gold or silver for the house of Adonai, because they gave the money to those doing the work, thus restricting its use to repairing the damage in the house of Adonai. Moreover, they did not require an accounting from the supervisors given the money to pay the workers, because they dealt honestly. Money from guilt offerings and sin offerings, however, was not brought into the house of Adonai. It went to the Kohanim. And now we'll go to the Gospel of Matthew. As they were going about together in the Galilee, Yeshua said to them, "The Son of Man is about to be betrayed into the hands of people, who will put him to death, and on the third day he will be raised." And they were filled with sadness. When they came to Capharnaum, the collectors of the half shekel came to Kepha and said, "Doesn't your rabbi pay the temple tax?" "Of course he does," said Kepha. When he arrived home, Yeshua spoke first. "Shimon, what's your opinion? The kings of the earth, from whom do they collect duties and taxes? From their sons or from others?" "From others," he answered. Then said Yeshua, "The sons are exempt, but to avoid offending them, go to the lake, throw out a line, and take the first fish you catch. Open its mouth, and you will find a shekel. Take it and give it to them, for me and for you." That concludes our Bible readings today. Thank you for listening. May we all continue to grow in knowledge of His words, and may our walk with God grow closer. I humbly bless you with the holy ancient Hebrew words. Yevarechecha Adonai vayishmarecha, Ya'er Adonai panavalecha vichunecha, Yisa Adonai panavalecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the Lord make His face shine upon you, be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. Until next time, my friends and family, remember that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of God. I encourage you to remain connected to his words, reflect upon them daily. Indeed, you will then discover your true identity in him. Friends, if you enjoy listening to the weekly Bible portions, please consider subscribing to this free channel. Click the bell icon to receive notifications, and don't forget to press the like button so many people can be reached, and kindly share this video with family and friends. Shalom and blessings to you.